All right, so you have attained quite a stature here. I understand you were born in Marshall County.
Right.
Now, in order to get some things on the tape for our genealogist benefit, and there are a lot of them these days, it seems, we'd like to try to go back and, and pick up your father and mother's name, and then maybe even the grandparents if you know them. What about your dad?
My dad was Wilson Blakney, the youngest one of the grandfather's children.
Uh-huh. And he married. What is your mother's maiden name?
Emma Collins.
Emma Collins. All right. Now you know even back further than that. You know.
Oh yeah, yeah. My father was born in 1844.
Well, that's a long time ago. As a matter of fact, Marshall County was created by act of the legislature in 1842.
Yeah.
So the county, actually, by the time they picked the county seat and set it up in Benton, it was 1843, and the first Tater Day was 1843, and so you go right back to the very, very beginnings with your father.
Yeah.
Well, what about your granddad?
Well, he was born in South Carolina in 1806.
1806? Well, that is before Abraham Lincoln was born.
Right, right. And my grandmother was born there the same year. My grandfather's name was James Blakney, and my grandmother's name was Rebecca Arant, married to Blakney.
Now the Arants, some of them came to Marshall County too. Yeah. Uh-huh. Well, I've known. Let's see, with whom did I go to college? A boy named Waco Arant.
Yeah, that's Tom Arant. Lived down
Seemed like he ran a truck line.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I tell you, you certainly go back, you and your forebears, for a long, long time here. So, if anybody has roots in Marshall County, I'd say you do.
And my father was the youngest boy of the family.
Well, now, born at the time he was, would he have been subject maybe to the Civil War?
He was 18-year-old during the Civil War. When did the Civil War start?
Well, it started in April of 1861.
61.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I thought that my history is not as good as some other things about it.
What could you tell us about any?
He wasn't in service, but his older brothers were.
Well, tell us about them. Were they in the Confederate Army or the?
Well, I suppose it was Thomas Arant enlisted in the 31762.
Served in the 34th Regiment, Mississippi Infantry.
That's right. And
Confederate States of America.
That's
okay.
Right. He died in
September of 1862.
That's right.
In a hospital in Chattanooga.
That's right. Hospital in Chattanooga. And then Aaron Blakney, Aaron Phillip, was born in 1832, and he disappeared during the war. He's in service, and they don't know where he was buried or
missing in action. Yeah. Uh-huh.
And then Hugh A. Blakney was born in 1838, and he was in the 34th
Mississippi Infantry Company B. Uh-huh.
And we don't know what became of him. And my nephew and my sister went down to Fort Donaldson and inquired down there, and they said at that time the Northerns spaced theirs out in tombs, and the Southerns, they just dug a trench and buried them, piled them in there, and there's no record of down there where he was buried or anything, with no record of them from then on.
Well,
and my father was, they came to Kentucky. They was all born in Kentucky, except in one sister.
Mm-hmm.
And then they came from South Carolina to Kentucky. And the one sister, and she was born in Mississippi. They went from here to Mississippi sometime during that period of time.
Lucinda was born in Kentucky.
And,
Yeah, okay.
And then there's one it died young. It was born in Mississippi in 1850. And so then later they come back to Kentucky in about 62.
Yes, sir.
And this Lucinda married a Rhodes, and they came with a wagon and teams, and the other side of the northern captured them down around Jackson, Tennessee, and taken their equipment all away from them. They never did make it on back to Kentucky, so they come back to Kentucky, and my mother then, my father died here in Kentucky.
All right, now what about this one named Jesse Wilson?
Well, that's my father.
That is your dad.
That's my father.
Born
Jesse
here
Wilson.
in 1844, and he lived till 1918.
Right.
Did the big flu epidemic maybe get him or not?
No, he had a kidney ailment, Bright's disease they called it, and that was. He died in the winter of 37.
That's what killed my grandfather Mofield.
1718 in a bad winter, and it taken 4 horses to get him to the graveyard, and my grandmother died then, and
was that Melinda? Was that her name?
no, Rebecca Abraham.
Yes, yes, she. Now, who is this Melinda that you have listed there? Born in 1845 in Kentucky.
Well,
was that your dad's sister?
That's the youngest one of them. And so, and there's
Now, you have a couple of names down here, Mr. Blakney, like James Blakney, who died in 1852.
Well, that was my grandfather.
And Rebecca was your grandmother, died in 1867.
67, and they came here. They settled close to out here, close to the.
Are they buried in Marshall County?
In the New Hope Cemetery, the Primitive Baptist New Hope Cemetery, and it was established in 1833. And Rebecca's a member there at that church.
Yes, sir.
And then my grandfather died on the way from Mississippi here, and he was buried somewhere between here and there. I don't know where.
Yeah. Well, that's unfortunate, but I suppose it happened in those days more frequently than now.
Yeah. And so that's and then my father married Jane.
Was he married more tn one time?
Yeah. He married Jane Manley. And had 5 children, 4 boys and 1 girl. And H.A. Blakney was the oldest one of them, and Ed Blakney was the next, and Walt was the next, and Clint, and Ethel was a baby 2-year-old when she died, the grandmother. And she's buried at New Hope Graveyard, and Walt, my father married Emma Collins, was my mother, married Emma Collins.
Now that was his second marriage.
Second marriage, and she was 26 years old. And I was born in 1896, and I was the first one of the children, and the half-brother, Walt, taught school at McCain Schoolhouse in 1900, and I was 4 years old in February, and I went to school every day, walked a mile and a quarter, and went to school at McCain Schoolhouse, and he taught the second year, and I went to school the next year. The 2 years.
Was he easy on you?
Whipped me every other day. And so he developed TB, and in 1923, the doctors advised him to go west for his health.
Uh-huh.
So Clint, the youngest brother, was only 18-year-old then, and my dad told them they decided to go to California. They went to California and went to Los Angeles. And Dad told them, says, you can get work okay and do the best you can. If you can't make it, need money, I'll send you money. And so they went out there, and my brother, it was Alan, got a job on a water wagon washing the streets off.
Mm-hmm.
And the other brother got a job on the streetcars and drove a streetcar, and so he...
Did their health improve?
No. This boy was ailing. He got, in 1906, he developed appendicitis, and came back to Kentucky to be operated on appendicitis. And at that time, there's 3 doctors in Sharp. There's Dr. Penley, Dr. Robertson, and Dr. Penley, Dr. Robertson, and Dr. Frank.
Mm-hmm. 3 physicians. Well, that's
In
really
Sharp.
something, isn't it?
So he came back, and Dr. Penley operated on him for appendicitis on an eating table there in Sharp. And he went back, and that place never did heal up. And then in 1907, my family, my father, and taking his family, and we went to Los Angeles, and we caught a train in Paducah and carried all the luggage it allowed us to carry, and caught a train to Paducah. The train at Paducah and went to Little Rock, and caught a sleeper from Little Rock, and it had taken us 7 days and 7 nights. We landed in Los Angeles.
That was quite a trip.
And we went around there, went the northern route up to the Grand Canyon, and taking 3 engines to carry us over the mountains. There's one in front, one behind, one in the middle. And we landed in Los Angeles, and we stayed there with my brother for a few days, or a few months, or a few weeks or something. And my father bought a 10-acre place in between Redlands and San Bernardino. Bought a 10-acre fruit ranch and give $2,000 for it, and got a mare in a 1-horse hack.
To boot.
Got that thrown in with it.
Yeah.
And we had to go over up at Airhead Hot Springs and go up in the mountains and get our stove wood, cook stoves, all the heat we had.
Mm-hmm.
And we got a stove, and we got a lot of grapevines cut up for stove wood. And so then in the spring, why he passed away, and he's buried there in Redlands Cemetery there in California.
Uh-huh.
When we came back in the fall, then we came back the southern route, come back through and stopped at Fort Worth, Texas, to John L. Murray Blakney, my father's brother, 4 years older than he was, and we
Named
stayed
after Congressman John L. Murray, I imagine.
probably. And so we stayed a month there and visited with him for a month, and then came on home. And my dad sold that place for enough of what he sold it for, and what we made enough on that 10 acres to pay our expenses there and back. We hadn't out no money on that.
Mm-hmm.
And
Well, that gets you up then
and
to what, about World War I?
right,
Were you in service then?
but I went to I went to school. I went to school in this schoolhouse. I went first to my brother. I went to school there. Only school that I ever went to, and it only had one door in it. That's the only school, and I got my PhD there.
Yeah.
In them days, it meant postal digger, and this they changed it. I don't know what it means today.
Well, we can't say on the air what some of them call it now.
Well, that's the only school I ever went to, and we had a good school. We had spelling matches, and we had McCain School had about the best spelling school it was. We spelled against the other schools, Sharp, Oak Valley, and
About where was McCain located?
it's on the Sharp and Benton Road, about 4 miles towards Benton out of Sharp.
Mm-hmm.
And his church is just 1.25 miles and a half from there. It's on what they call the New Hope Road.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've been a member of that church ever since 1913. And
You remember the names of any preachers you had there back in the earlier times?
Yeah, Brother Uncle Thomas Harrison was a preacher there when I was small, and then we had a preacher by the name of Brother Scott. It came there, and that's when I united with the church with Brother Scott. And then my father and mother, I joined on the first Sunday in September of 1913, and so the next in November, first Sunday in November, my father and mother joined, and we was all baptized that evening in a creek.
You didn't have baptisters then, did you?
We went to the river or creek summit,
Uh-huh.
and so.
All right.
Another thing, my father had the chills before him. My mother married after his first wife died. I had the chills all one fall and through the winter, and taking medicine. And so in the spring, he went to this Dr. Penley there at Sharp, and went down there, and doctor asked, what do you do for him? So he wanted to be bled. Oh, he said, we quit that, Wills. Says, we can't do that. Oh, he says, I don't care. Says, I ain't going home when you bleed me. Says, I've had the chills all the fall and all the winter, and I ain't going back home till you bleed me. And said, I can't make a crop and have a chill every day. And so the doctor said, well, if that's all we'll do, he says, I reckon we can. So he bled him.
Worst thing on earth could have happened, of course.
And I was 21 years old when my father died, and he never had a chill from that day as long as he lived.
Well, how did he get the quinine to cure the malaria?
Well, that bleeding took it out of there. You see, they used to bleed the old people. And
Yeah, they killed millions of them. They killed George Washington by
Yeah.
bleeding him when they should have given him a
Well,
blood transfusion.
But it worked that way on him. I've heard him tell it different times. He never did, and I know while I was living, I was
Yes,
big enough to know anything. He never had another chill from that day. And so then, as I said, I made that through school, and I don't know.
All right, you told me you were in World War I. Could you tell me what branch of the service you were in?
Yeah, my father died in January, and I was 21 years old in February, and I was drafted and left Benton on the fourth Saturday before Big Singing Day in May. I left home on Friday evening, drove to Benton, horse, and put it in Uncle Mac Daniel's stables. My wife was my sweetheart then. She was board in Uncle Mac, and I stayed with Uncle Mac that night and left my horse and buggy there, and walked down to the station on Saturday morning and went there's 100, I think it's 100 went from Marshall County that day.
You were draftees?
That's right.
Yeah.
And went from
What'd
here
you
to
think
Fort
about having to be drafted and leave
Well,
home? You think
it didn't bother me. I thought there's a duty that you should perform if they call on you, and you want to protect your country and much as is possible. And so
where did you go to train?
I never done much training. I told a fellow one time that he asked me where I took my training. I told him I took it in the kitchen. And so
you became a cook?
So we went to Louisville.
Camp Taylor?
Taylor. Stayed there about 3 weeks. I used a gun a little bit, practiced with it a little, and went down to Georgia. I think it's about, not the whole bunch that went from here. They picked out and carried some from here and other places, and there's 100 went to Georgia, Camp Greenleaf, Georgia. And, well, we fell out, got off the train, fell out to the barracks. A bunch that was to go and stay together. Fell out in this barracks and stayed there 3 days. They got their papers misplaced. Nobody knowed nothing. We wasn't under nobody's care or nobody over us. And the fellow in the barracks next to us said, "You want to know who?" Well, nobody wasn't charged. Said, well, said, "You got to have something to eat." He fixed the meals for us for 2 or 3 days there, and after we kind of got settled a little bit, why, he was in line one morning, and my wife's cousin was in there. Went with me, and he was a sorghum maker, U.A. Covington. And we were standing in formation one morning, and the sergeant says, "Is there any cooks in this bunch?" He punched me and says, "I can cook sorghum molasses." And so he said, and the next thing he says, "Is anybody wants to be a cook?" He punched me and said, "Let's take that." So we went in the kitchen. So I stayed in the kitchen then. I went in there as assistant cook or helping, and so I stayed in there till in June, and I was an administrator with one of my half brothers, the other administrator for the 2 sets of children, and I was called home 10 days to settle the estate, and so while I was gone, my outfit moved out. Well, I got back and put me in a new outfit, and I don't remember what it was, but they put me in another outfit.
Did that first one you were in go overseas?
Yeah, it went on,
and that left you here?
And left me here, and put me in another outfit, and I was a cook there. Well, we formed that outfit, and it was 109. No, I got the measles. And I never had the measles. Got me in the hospital with the measles, and I'd been in there for a few days. Finally, meningitis broke out, and meningitis, and there we was quarantined for 6 weeks. Nobody in, nobody out. They'd taken them out dead, but no live ones went out. They were only dead ones. Well, they wasn't dead, but they went out with it so bad, And so I was quarantined there for 6 weeks, and got out of that. Got back to my company. Why, that company's done gone.
They're already gone.
They're gone. I had to farm another one. So got started in that one, and that was Base Hospital 109. And so they come around, after, I don't know how long, it was only in last of August, something along in there, why they issued the equipment for overseas, and they never give me, told me to go down and get it in. So I said to Sergeant, Sergeant, what's the matter? I didn't get my equipment. Well, he said, they had orders to keep you here. I said, what for? He said, they want you to break in new cooks in the outfits, and to form the outfits. They'll break in the cooks. He said, you want to go? I said, I'd rather go and stay here, because I said, you can't go home. And that was a long way from home then, Chattanooga was.
But it wasn't as far as France.
Yep. He said, in about an hour, why, he told me to go. I said, well, you go down and get my equipment. So I got equipment.
You finally got to go overseas?
I went overseas. And from
did you ride where'd you go? Where'd you get on a ship?
We got it on a ship at New York, and landed at Liverpool, England, crossed the river over to the Sahara, France,
Yeah.
And so we was in the pup tents there at the Heart of France, and waiting for orders to where we go to from there. And about 11 o'clock from November the 11th, the bells began to ring and began to hoorah, and the armistice was signed. That was the 11th, wasn't it?
Yes, sir. And,
And-
did you
yeah.
ever set your foot in France at all?
Yeah, we was in Le Havre at that time.
Oh, yeah, you were in Le
We went
Havre.
across the English Channel in Le
You,
Havre.
you'd gone from Liverpool, yes.
Over to
Okay.
and we was in the pup tents waiting for orders to where we was going to marriage. So they sent us from there then, after the armistice signed, they sent us down to Vichy, France.
Uh-huh.
It's a summer resort. And they'd taken over this big hotel, and they had the soldiers in there that was wounded, but wasn't able to take care of themselves. I mean, they was able to take care of themselves, but all we had to do was to feed them and clean up, keep the quarters clean for them. And so I stayed down there and till in April, I was going overseas from the time I left on the other side till I got back. I was gone exactly 6 months
Had a free trip and didn't have to fight.
and didn't have to fight. I never seen it. And
All because you were a good cook.
yeah. So then we landed back on this side, and
Did you learn to cook when you were getting your PhD?
no, I didn't go there. We didn't have no. So then we got back on this side, and sent then was come back to Camp Taylor, and on Friday about 1 o'clock we got this. I got my discharge, and I called a train at come to Paducah. It got into Paducah at 8 o'clock, and the 8 o'clock train come from Paducah to Benton, made connection with it. So I got on it. There's another fellow from Marshall County, but as Salyers.
Mm-hmm.
And we mustered out at the same time, and so we got to Paducah, called my brothers, and told them to meet me at Elvie. And we caught the 8 o'clock train coming to Elvie, and got off at Elvie, and we walked to the Slough Bridge before we met them coming in a buggy, and carried me home. And I got home on Friday night before Big Singing Day, and I left home on Friday night the year before on Big Singing Day.
That's quite a record, isn't it?
And so then,
Now let's see. You married and you had some children. We just got about 2 more minutes left on the tape, so could you tell us how many children you had and who they are?
yeah, I had 4 children, and there's Marie was the oldest, and Milton was second, and Kenneth was the third, and Frida was a baby.
Now your wife, your
And
first wife died, did she not,
Died,
Mr. Blakney?
Yeah, she died, and
And then later you married one of the Nichols
that's
girls?
right, married Cormay Nichols, or Fuquay. She was a Nichols and married Fuquay, and I married her.
Uh-huh.
And so she's passed away. Will be 2 years ago in March.
Mm-hmm.
And
Was a great performer in big singing. I
Yeah.
remember that. All right, we've got about 1 more minute left. What else would you like to say before we have to sign off?
well, I don't know why.
If you had your life to live over, would you make it Marshall County mainly?
Yeah,
or-
yeah, I'd do that. I think I'm well pleased with things here, and so I guess I'd make some changes if I knowed what it went to and what I know now. I'd probably make some changes.
I noticed you showed me that your brother ran for school superintendent. Did you ever make any trials for public office?
No. I farmed all my life.
And you're still farming.
And I went to St. Louis in 1925. I got in debt and couldn't pay the interest on what I owed and pay any principal. I went to St. Louis and a streetcar a motorman on a streetcar there from 1925 to 32. And the depression hit, and I come home and never did go back. I could have went back, but I didn't want to go back.
That's good. Well, we appreciate your stopping in and talking with us and sharing all these wonderful things that have happened in your long lifetime now, about 87 years of age, as I recall. I'm Ray Mofield, and we've been recording for the State Library Division, and one of these tapes will be in Frankfurt at the Archives, the other at Murray State University, at the University Pogue Library, and another in the Marshall County Library, all paid for by WCBL Radio in Benton. And that concludes our broadcast for today.